Hey, good people. Happy it's Saturday, it's Friday for some of you, it's Saturday for some of you. So right now it is officially Saturday, July 27, 2024. It's another day that the Lord has made. We shall rejoice and be glad in. My name is Simene, the student teacher. I provide quality education to students by way of training new and beginning teachers how to have quality relationships and to build quality pedagogy. And so we are here, we are back on the countdown to our summer professional development for new and beginning teachers, novice teachers, and this is good information and good teaching and training that even seasoned and tenured teachers can listen to and be refreshed and realize that, oh, these are some of the things that I put in practice in my classroom. These are some of the issues that I may have had in my classroom, and so good to know that I'm not by myself. And a lot of the things that we see, a lot of the principles, a lot of the disciplines, a lot of the teaching and pedagogy is really things that are standard in practice throughout the country, throughout the nation. Different counties, different districts just call it various things, have different acronyms for it. So a lot of this is just good teaching that you can apply to any city, any state, any district that you are in. And so I'm glad that you guys are here. So initially, this started off as 20 minutes for 20 days, professional development and celebration of me finishing 20 years of public education, right? And so what was my give back? My give back was to share this information, to be able to pull back into new and beginning teachers, those who want to stay in the profession for 2 decades or more. I know a lot of great educators who have been in education much longer than 20 years, right? And so 20 years is like a drop in the bucket, but they're graduates, new graduates who have signed their contract, and this is their first year going in, or they had their first year last year, and now they're coming back strong, or long-term substitutes who are stepping in because there are vacancies. And it's like, I need something that's going to help me, and this right here is something that's going to help you. Send this to your principal, send this to your coaches, and say, hey, listen, this is a link that if your new teacher is struggling in an area, or is something, one of these different days that I was speaking and teaching was something that you feel like will be beneficial to your teachers, hey, feel free to send them this link to the YouTube channel and say, hey, I need you to go check out the student teacher, right? And so this is how this all came to be. Last night I was on for an hour and 22 minutes. The day before that I was on 56 minutes when it was live. Even when we did the pre-recorded ones, the first one was like 28 minutes, one was like 29 minutes. And so I have exceeded the number of hours that correspond with 20 minutes times 20 days, which is 400 hours. Being a teacher, you get stuck, and depending on where you are, even in corporate, you kind of get, until you change your mindset, it's like, okay, I'm salary, so I do the job until it's finished. That I might put in more hours than what's required in the school day. And so when I went back and looked at this, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to give more hours than what I have allotted for the 20 days, 20 minutes. And so last night, I just want to put that for day 13, 14, and 15. And so this is 16. Depending on how long we go tonight, it may be considered 16, 17, and 18. And then we'll have 2 more days to go. So if I'm up here for at least an hour, consider this to be day 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Okay. So just so you guys know that we're talking about how to build a student-centered and student-friendly classroom. And tonight we're tackling, this morning, it's for some of you, it's still night. If you're Central Standard Time or Pacific Standard Time, you're still in July 26. Praise the Lord. For those of us who are in West African time, Ghana time, China, anything outside of the Western world, you are already crossed over into what we consider Saturday, July 27. And so we're going to hop right into it tonight. I thought that I would do a breakdown one about planning your lesson, which I am. But I'm giving you a lot of strategies as we go for this specific, for each grade level. And this age group right here is typically middle school. And so I have a lot of experience with middle school. I have a lot of experience with charter schools. And so I can give you I'm going to give you a lot of information tonight when it comes to this, because this is where I really have thrived at for the last 20, I say thriving, maybe the last 8-9 years. Been in it for 20, but really thrive in the last 8 or 9 years. And so let's get into it. So here we are. We're talking tonight about 11-year-olds, right? Their physical development. They restless, but they very energetic, right? One minute you can see them running down the hallway with with their peers in the cafeteria. It could be very, very loud, and then they come into your classroom and they kind of want to put their head down and, oh my God, right? So you have to make sure that you are engaging them in the classroom setting, outside of them coming up with their own different activities or coming up with their own definition of talking and being engaged in your classroom. So you structure that in a way where I already know they have a lot of energy, right? But then they can also be restless. And for some of them, it's like they tend to stay up late to play video games or be on their phones. And so then when they come to school, sometimes they're very sleepy early in the morning. So you got to figure out, how can I get them active? I have students who would put their heads down when they came into my classroom first thing in the morning. So one, of course, the parents say, hey, just let me know if they're sleeping. And so sometimes I would, sometimes I wouldn't, because it's like, you don't want to email and call for every single thing, right? Let me handle certain things in the classroom. And so then you would start putting activities that kept them up. And for some of them, if they was just really sleepy, they sleep through, it don't matter what you had to do. They were just going to take them a nap, right? 11-year-olds, they need lots of food. I mean, like, lots of food. They love snacks. So you have to put something in place in your classroom to say, hey, there is no eating in here. And then when you start seeing, if you start seeing food in certain places, then you can start targeting that specific side of who sits there. Then I say there's no eating, and you have to be consistent with that. And they may say, Ms. Walden, I didn't eat breakfast, or Ms. Walden, I'm still hungry, or I couldn't get my lunch. They'll tell you all kinds of things, but you have to be consistent on what it is that you design and set up in your classroom, because for a lot of students, they're not the most custodial when it comes to picking up their stuff. Now you have some to say, oh, Miss Walden, let me get the broom. I'll sweep it up. I made a mess. They'll get it, right? They'll be ready to clean it up for you. But then some, you'll still have like crumbs, and they'll leave bottles, and you're like, oh my God. So you have to put some parameters around that when it comes to them eating in your classroom. But they do love snacks. Okay. They do love snacks. Social and emotional development for 11-year-olds. They need adult empathy. They need adult humor, right? Our job is never to humiliate a student. Our job is never to embarrass a student, because think about it as an adult, right? I don't want to be called out by my principal. I don't want to be called out by the administrator if I'm in the middle of a staff meeting, right? So think about that when you're in the classroom. Now, we do know that students be trying to get with you sometimes, especially this age group. They can be a little mouthy, right? But you got to find ways that's going to be healthy in your correction of them, and let them know, please don't do that. And I always tell them, like, listen, you don't want me to go there with you. So please, please, please don't go there with me. Right. So you have to kind of let them know this ain't what you want, but you're not saying it in a way where, you're threatening them, or you're harming them, or you making them feel intimidated, but you just let them know, I am the adult, and I am the adult authority figure in this classroom, and you're going to follow what I ask you to do. Now, of course, you have some who, they're going to test your limits, right? 11, 12, 13-year-olds, they're going to test the limits, right? As many as they can, to see how much they can get away with and see who they can get away with it. So you just need to be consistent in what you're doing with them. 11-year-olds, they need a reasonable amount of time to talk with their peers. That's why you have to incorporate that in your classroom, incorporate that movement, incorporate that cooperative learning, incorporate that group work and that partner work, but also make sure it's structured. And again, there are some students who, it doesn't matter who you partner them with, they're going to get what they need to get done, and they're not going to be, dramatic or loud or disruptive about it. Then you have some that, they can't get along with anybody. They have this one or two people that they want to talk to only, and everybody else they can't get along with. So you have to be able to navigate that and let them know, listen, at some point in your life, you're going to have to learn to work with people that you don't necessarily like, but you're there, for one job. That's to get this activity done. You can use them, and it'll go lessen the work, and you'll be able to work together, or you can sit by yourself and not do it at all, right? But they love to talk. They love to talk to their peers. So incorporate that into your classroom. Again, like I said, they will test your limits. They will test every bound. Some of them will test every boundary that you have. And as long as you're consistent, as long as you continue to say no, as long as you put whatever stipulations around that, eventually they'll realize, okay, let me just stop asking her because she keeps saying no. There are some that They don't care who you are. They're going to just keep asking. They're going to keep trying. And, you have to keep giving consequences when they are not listening or following through to what you're asking them to do. They love their 11-year-olds. They're real big on team sports. They love this. Now they get into a lot of competition. They want to prove that they're good at something. And so even when you play games or something in your classroom, you got to set that up and structure that. I always tell students, especially when I allow them to pick groups, I would always say, if your friend chooses somebody else in this moment, this does not mean that your friendship is over. This does not mean that they don't like you. This does not mean that, y'all can't be friends anymore. Just know in this moment, they chose to be with somebody else. Because when you allow them and say, hey, let me pick a group, or let me pick a friend, or let me pick a partner. If you got 3 friends in the classroom where all 3 can't work together, right? Now, if it's an uneven number, and they say, Miss Walden, like, she by herself or he by himself, and can they work with us? And I'll say, yeah, because I don't like students to be left out by themselves, right? But initially, if I say find a partner, that's what I mean, find a partner. Don't automatically say, oh, we 3 just gonna get together, because I'll tell them all to work by themselves, right? So you got to make sure you set that up in your classroom, because they'll have a whole meltdown and breakdown in the next class. They fussing because they say, oh, you didn't want to work with me in Miss Walden's class or Mr. Greg's class. And it's like, yo, I set that up now because I know that, to let them know, listen, they're just working with this person for now. So it's not that they don't like you and that you're not still their friend and they don't still love you. So you have to let students know that, because otherwise it becomes a big thing, because friendships and how people see them is something really, really big in middle school. They would rather learn new skills than to keep going over the old ones, right? And the thing about it is, I always tell students, if you have not mastered this old skill, it's going to be hard for you to grasp this new one. But because I taught reading, right, there are certain skills that's going to be looping, or you're going to see them over and over again. So don't get all caught up about, I'm not exactly on pace. I'm supposed to be, day 16. I'm supposed to be right here in the pacing guide, right here, with the curriculum, and I'm off a little bit. It's going to happen. Please don't be stressed out about something that's automatically going to happen. Nobody's ever directly on target, right? And if they are, it's because they're going straight through the curriculum, not really testing to see that everybody get it, right? Because some days you're going to have something that's going to take you longer than 1 day or 2 days or whatever's outlined. But again, some of those skills are going to be retaught in another quarter. So I already know point of view and main idea and theme, that's something that's ongoing. So if there was something else that I wanted to do with it in first quarter that I wasn't able to get to, I know I can pick that up in second and third and fourth quarter, that they're going to still get the information. Okay. So a lot of them, they don't necessarily like to review stuff, but you can add new things in it. And then you let them know, hey, once we master this, once we get this, then we can move on, right? And you can still use those same skills that you've already taught. You keep reteaching them so they master that, okay? So just know they're like, oh my God, we got to do this again. Yeah, we do got to do this again. They have troubles making mistakes, and they can be defensive about their mistakes. So you got to be mindful of when you're calling on students in middle school and they don't get it right, that you don't embarrass them. It's not a laughing moment. And you teach students, you don't laugh at people when they get something wrong, because you never been in, this particular grade level, unless they have been in it. If they've been in it a second time, clearly they didn't get it. So you need to be paying attention. So I would say, you never been in this grade before. You never been in 6th grade before. You never been in 7th grade before. You never, been in this course. And if you're an adult, you never worked on this job before. You never did this task before. You never spoke at this school before. You may have the concept of it, but you never did it before. And so if I make a mistake, and if I don't know it, if I have a question, it's okay, because I've never done this before. Okay. They like, again, and I said this before, and I won't keep saying it, but they like to challenge rules, and it's not personal, right? When you get in middle school, it's not always personal. They just like to challenge rules. They like to figure out what they can get going on. Hey, let me make it a Ghana. Let's go together. Mac, how you doing, girlfriend? Class meetings go a long way with students, especially middle school students. I will have them all the time. When there's something going on, you don't just skate past that and say, hey, I need to get to my lesson, because what will happen is they'll be so distracted about what's going on anyway that they ain't gonna get much from your lesson anyway. So when I know there's something really going on, we're gonna take a minute and we're gonna address it. And I'll give students a minute to talk about it, share their comments and their thoughts. Again, I had to start using timer because I would have lots of hands go up. So most of the time, all the students wanted to answer answer depending on what we was talking about. And so I had to kind of structure, we're going to talk about it. Now, we may not be able to talk about the whole time, depending on what it is, because as you listen to those students share their thoughts and share their opinions, you realize, man, they taught me a lot of things, that they have a perspective on this thing. And a lot of times, believe it or not, students know right from wrong. I know sometimes they may get to school and you looking at, excuse me, students know right from wrong. They will tell you, yeah, I probably shouldn't have did it. I shouldn't have said that. Or Miss Walden, they shouldn't have did it. Like, students know right from wrong. So you allow them to talk through what they're feeling or what they experience, and then you give them a mature adult perspective. You can come up with a whole lot of solutions that will end well, instead of just ignoring it, and then they get in the hallway and have a big blow up, or they go to another teacher's classroom, which is usually a newer teacher or a novice teacher or someone who doesn't have the best classroom management, and then they blow up in there, right? So please take the time to kind of address these things when you see it, so that way it'll make the rest of the day or the rest of your class or the rest of your lesson go a little bit smoother. 11-year-olds, they like to initiate adult language. That means we have to be positive in the language that we use. We have to be positive in the way we interact with our coworkers and our colleagues, because students are watching, and they'll say, oh, you don't like such and such, or you like such and such, right? So make sure that the adult language, the adult behavior that you are displaying is something that you don't mind students initiating, because they will initiate it. They will copy it. They will tell the next teacher about it. They will tell their students and their friends and their parents about it. So one thing you have to know as a teacher, that students are going to talk about you. Especially if you're in middle school, they're going to talk about you, whether it's good or bad. They're going to talk about, just know someone is always talking about you when you're a middle school teacher, right? Because that's part of their development and growing. They can be self-absorbed and interested in imagining things in adult roles, right? So sometimes it can be just all about them and what they want to do, and nothing that you do will satisfy, because this ain't what they want to do at the very moment. Just know it's not personal. They need help with class management. They need help with homework skills. You have to teach the importance of, why are you doing this? It can't simply be because, this is for a grade, and if everybody's not doing it, I'm gonna fail everybody, right? You have to also look at that. If you have a majority of your students in your class failing something, an assignment or homework, you have to look and see, why is majority of them not doing it? There has to be something that's happening, right? And it can't be, oh, well, I'm going to penalize you and penalize you and penalize you until you get it. Some stuff just don't work, right? For me, when I was a reading teacher, I would make sure, I told you, I didn't assign specific things to read at night for homework, because I don't want reading to be a task. I want it to be an enjoyment. And a lot of people don't read now because they was forced to read in school, and oh my God, I ain't gonna read. But make reading enjoyment. So find things that you like, that you're interested in reading. I have a book now. Oh, I don't see it on the bookshelf, but it's called How Not to Be Toxic. I've been reading little by little, and then there's another book about saying no, right? So neither one of them are right here. But those are two things that I found, like, let me get some stuff that's going to help me, things that I'm interested in, things to make sure that I'm good, things that's going to build me up, right? So the same thing with students, read stuff that, let them pick and read stuff that they enjoy. And there's so many online books, and, sometimes, with online books, you got to be mindful of that, because they may be online, but then they own something else. So I still love a physical book. I still love to buy books, online, Kindle, praise the Lord for that. But I still like a physical book that I can flip some pages in, that I can write, that I can highlight in. I love a physical book, right? With 11-year-olds, do more nonfiction with them that's going to interest them. Talk about real world things. Like these, at this age, students are very aware of what's happening in the real world. Unfortunately, there are students who come to school who've experienced a lot of adult things. Some of the students in your classroom experience, sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse from their home life. And then they come into the classroom, and a lot of times they take it out. So you have to be mindful of that. Why are students responding the way they respond? Why are students behaving the way they behave? I always pay attention to the girls when, they wearing little skimpy things, right? You have to pay attention in middle school. They will come to school. They will leave their house in one type of dress and come to school and change into something else. And I was catching those girls like, I know your mama. I know your mama didn't send you out like that. And I'm like, I'm gonna call. Okay, I'm gonna change, Miss Walden, right? And you have to address it, especially if you have males on your team who cannot address these things, because it's like, well, I don't want to say anything to the girls about why they pants so tight or short. So as a mature teacher, you might want to go ask your team lead or whoever else is considered the most mature or have a better relationship with the students to address those issues. And so, last year, which was my last year in the classroom, praise the Lord, I was the team leader. And I had more experience the last 2 years at this school on this team than all of my colleagues, right? A lot of them were new. They had just started, right? One, she had been in education for some time, but she was like a behavior specialist. She never really was like a classroom teacher. She was maybe had like 2-3 years experience. We didn't have a math teacher for a while. She came, she was new. We had a science teacher. He was, I think he had like 2-3 years, and he left. And so there was a kind of no, he was a science teacher. Then we had substitutes there. And so I had the most experience of all of them. This year, same thing. We had one who had been teaching maybe 5-6 years. He ended up moving second semester to another grade. We had the math teacher who had 1 year. The science teacher left around October. We got another long-term substitute to take her place. So then that was his very first year teacher. So he had no teaching experience. And then we had a long-term sub to come in who stayed. That was her very first year teaching experience. I taught her the other day, and she was like, Miss Walden, they just don't know where you going. They just don't know who they're getting. She's like, I'll write whatever. She was like, if it was not for you, I wouldn't have made it. And I had to make sure that they were good, because when we were good as a team, we were good. You know what I'm saying? It made the load lighter. When you could feel when there was a imbalance, you could feel when somebody was lacking and wasn't too good. And so I had to pull a lot of my resources and my tools and patience to pour into them to say, listen, you could do it. Listen, these are some things we're going to put in place. And sometimes as a leader, you don't have time to go ask for input or what they think, because I kept thinking some of the things are happening because they don't have experience. They don't know. And so instead of me asking, I would ask for opinions, but there were some things, okay, this is what we're going to do. Here's the plan. This is what we need to execute. And they'd be like, okay, Ms. Walden, we trust you, right? So you have to build that relationship with your peers and know if you come to them with something, they know you're coming. You're not just looking out for the benefit of yourself, but the well-being of this team, the well-being of us. How can this be cohesive together to make this thing work? And so you got to make sure that whoever's the most seasoned, who has the best relationship, you can go to them. So if you're the new teacher and there are some things that's going on and you don't feel comfortable with addressing it, then you can, pass it off to somebody else. Now, one thing that I would say, it gets old and real fast when people are not pulling their weight and you are the leader and they keep coming to you. You have to always be considered the bad woman or the bad guy. And was like, oh my goodness, right? But that's kind of, as a leader, those are kind of things that you unofficially sign up for, because it's like, well, you're the person I'm going to with all my problems, because I believe with titles, it just kind of gives you some organization of who to go to for whatever, right? So they know, well, if we have some issues, I'm gonna talk to Miss Walden. If that don't work, I'm gonna go talk to somebody else. And that don't work, you just keep going up, change the command. Some people may not like you or your personality, so they may never come to you. They'll go above you, and it's like, did you ever talk to your team about it, right? So don't be somebody who automatically wants to go to administration when you have your team right in places you can talk to one by one. Now, if it's something where y'all don't get along, you got to figure out, why don't we get along, and then put some things in place. And we'll talk about it. That will definitely be one of the last lives I talk about, how to get along with your coworkers, ways to build relationships with your colleagues, with parents, with your administration, how to do that and be successful in it without feeling like you got to kiss up to somebody, because you don't have to kiss up to anybody. You can just be very pleasant to people, genuinely have an interest in people, and I promise you that goes a long way. And so we're talking about, that is 11-year-old. Here we are with the 12-year-olds, right? Again, they're very energetic. They need lots of exercise to rejuvenate their oxygen hungry brains. They love snacks. Middle school students love to eat. If you are a parent, your middle school and high school child loves to eat, right? They having growth spurts. They stay up late. They sleep in late. They might have trouble getting to school on time sometimes. They may have trouble staying awake. So you got to make sure your class is energetic and entertaining for that, especially the morning classes. Like, you have to figure out, what am I going to do to make sure this class is entertaining? And again, every day is not going to be entertainment. Again, every day is not going to be some fun activity, right? But every day should not be some boring, sit down, take these notes, don't talk, don't move, don't do nothing, right? That ain't gonna work for middle school, right? And you have a lot of classes that do it, but you also have a lot of classes who have a lot of classroom management issues because of that. Adult personality begins to emerge with a lot of 12-year-olds. You'll start seeing them take on different personalities, and you be looking like, well, why are you acting like that? The beginning of the year, they may start being one way, and by the middle of the year, they change, and on the end of the year, they somebody totally different. You looking like, what happened? These personalities, they're starting to engage and develop and have more, thoughts in their brains, and so they start changing and thinking and talking different. Friendships is a big thing again in middle school, especially with 12-year-olds. They may make new friends with classmates they've never been friends before. And so, of course, if I'm making new friends with somebody, I will really want to be around them. I really want to talk to them. I really want to just consume myself with them because it's new and fresh to me, and I want to be involved and enthralled into it, right? So again, you have to keep that in mind, especially when you start seeing new people talking in classroom that wasn't necessarily talking before. And sometimes even when you switch up the groups, don't always keep your groups the same, right? Have some autonomy, but also switch it up so it's not the same people in the group all the time. And they'll start talking to other people and realize, oh, I like them. Oh, I can talk to them. We have a lot in common. And that's how a lot of new friendships start. They care more now at 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds, but 12-year-olds, they care more about the opinions of their peers more so than their parents, and more so as you as an educator or teacher. That's just the truth of the matter. They care more about what their peers are saying more than what you are saying. And so that's why you got to make sure it's engaging and people are listening. If you know that you have a student who is more influenced by their peers than other ones, you can use that to your advantage. I told you guys that I don't necessarily like this idea. What he told me, I don't like that at all. So I told you guys, Amika told me that when we was in 8th grade, the teacher was like, did you see Simene? Did you see Simene? Right before he came in the classroom, because it was like, he'd be like trying to like skip out to see me, and like I wasn't coming out the classroom, but just to go look in the window to see what you're doing, right? So they would always say, did you see Simene? Right? Yeah, I saw her. Okay, well, we know that's like a drawing force for you. You like to be at school because you like to see her, whatever. But at the same time, it was like they was not pouring into him to make sure he got what he needed. It was just, did you see her? I don't want you to turn my classroom up, so make sure you saw her and make sure everything is good, but I'm not expecting you to do work. You don't want to be that type of teacher where there's somebody that has a good influence on them to kind of keep them calm or in check or doing what they're supposed to, or coming to school, or sitting down in the classroom and not disturbing it, but yet you're not giving them the information. You still want to hold them to the standard of, I need you to get your work done. You may just use their friendship or their relationship as a benefit and say, hey man, encourage your friend to do what they're supposed to. Encourage your friend to do their homework, right? So you want to use a relationship to your advantage, not just having focus on one, but not letting the other one kind of go. And I always say this to you guys: who you believe deserves a good education is the one that you'll give it to. The person that an adult believes deserves a good education is the one they're going to give it to. And you can see that in various aspects of life, right? It could be ministry, the one that they feel like God's hand is on, and oh my God, you so anointed. Those are the ones that they will pour into. The one that maybe just coming off the streets, or maybe they just been getting saved. They kind of like, I don't know. Sometimes even what parents do it. The one that I feel like is, doing what I asked them to do, I'm going to focus more on that. But you just don't know how that one who may be running around right now may not be, too far from getting themselves together. And so just got to be mindful of that. 12-year-olds, they help peers significantly with their schoolwork, right? A lot of times they'll be on the phone and they really will be talking about schoolwork, or they will be on the phone and saying, hey, help me with their homework. In the morning times, if they forgot something, they definitely want to get their homework done. I would always tell students not to copy, somebody else's work, because and it wasn't necessarily just cheating, but it was more so you're copying their information, but you still don't understand the concept. I don't want you to turn in something for a numeric grade and you don't know what you're doing. Again, that's why we have so many people who graduate from high school and they still can't read. You have people that are getting degrees and diplomas, right, and certificates, but they still cannot read. They still don't have the basic foundation of going to school for 12 years. So you don't want to be somebody who just copying somebody else, but you don't know the information. So that's the way I approach that. It's not about outside of the fact that it's cheating, you just copying, but you don't even know the information. Get the information, learn the information, right? So that's another way you can approach it when you see kids trying to copy one another. They are able to plan. So 12-year-olds, they get in their head, they're able to plan things out. If you're gonna give them homework, make sure again it's short-term things that don't spend their whole night. You have to think about if school is over at 3:34, whatever time, whatever the end time is, right? And you want to give homework, you don't have to give 50, 10, 20, 30 problems for them to know if they got it right, because you have a class and somebody else has a class and somebody else has a class. So if I'm spending an hour on everybody's class, that's like 4 hours. And by the time I finish, I got to eat and I got to go to bed. Make sure it's not so long and lengthy that they can finish all of their work in a reasonable amount of time and still have time to play, still have time to watch TV, or have a parent set it up. Some students say they can't watch TV or play games during the week, right? But at least give them some downtime where it's not just, oh my God, Monday through Thursday, it's just straight work from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed. That's what makes them burn out. So then when they get to school, they like, my mama can beat me. My mama can whoop me. My mama can take my phone and my game away. You ain't gonna do too much of all that for me. And so I may not pay attention. I may sit in this classroom and not disturb you, but I'm not gonna pay attention. So be mindful of that when you start assigning assignments. You don't want to be something long and drawn out. And if it's going to be a long and drawn out project, make it over several days. Let them know, okay, I'm giving this to you today. Here's the rubric that goes with it, and then it's due in 2 weeks, right? So if it's something long, give them a time span to finish it. Now, even with that, some students won't do it, but at least they don't feel like it's something I gotta spend all my days and all my nights to get done right away. Okay. 12-year-olds, they think more abstractly. They think about more moral issues. So again, when you talk to students, especially in middle school, they understand right from wrong. Some of them, not always, but for the most part, they understand right and wrong. And when you explain it and have a conversation, asking questions and listening to them, you really get their perspective on a lot of things. Students do better when things are cross curriculum, interdisciplinary. So if you're giving out a project or assignment, or you're doing something in your class, you can relate it to something maybe from science or social studies or history or math or PE or the arts or drama or financial literacy. You can incorporate those other disciplines so they can see how this ties in. As a reading teacher, I will always show students how it's connected to the real world. It was never just something isolated. When you teach only in isolation, they never find the connection and they definitely check out, right? If I was teaching the elements of a story, I'm not just going to use a story for that. Pick your favorite TV show. Pick your favorite movie. Let me show you how to identify character, setting, plot, theme, point of view. What is the lesson learned here, right? What's the what type of characters are in the story, right? Where's the setting of this taking place? And setting could be a number of places, right? So you teaching them, don't just teach them in isolation, because again, we might have a discipline, or you may be specialized in an area, but you're teaching these children how to live life. You're teaching these children how to grow up and be responsible adults, right? And the small lessons that we learn as they go, it will be seeds planted. It'll be seeds that we sow that will reap a harvest later. Remember, I said that it's a quote that says, it's easier to build strong children. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men and women. Right. Think about, sometimes we say it with older people who are like in their 60s or 70s or maybe 50s and say, they old, they stuck in their ways. Right. It's just not 50 and 60-year-olds that get stuck in their ways. By the time people get 30 and 40 and they've been doing this on their own, it is hard to change that brain. So it's easier to raise strong children than to repair broken men and women. So keep that in mind. 12-year-olds are able to see both sides of an argument. If something's happening, they able to see both sides of it. If there's two people disagreeing or they're disagreeing with you as an adult, they can see two sides of it. They may not always want to acknowledge that they understand it, but they can see both sides of it. They can be both playful and serious, right? One minute they can be very, very playful. The next minute they can be arguing and fussing. You got to figure out, how do we navigate that in the class, right? What do you do when students are going off? Do you have like a quiet corner? Do you have, some type of do they get a recess or a timeout just within the classroom, even at their own desk? Let them have their moment to come on down and then get back into the swing of things with class. Figure all those things out, because a lot of times you think it's personal and it's not personal. And you don't want to be the one who, every time y'all come to a team meeting, every time there's a staff meeting, that you're the one with 55,000 complaints. Just listen. As a new teacher, learn to listen and see what other people are saying, because a lot of times, a lot of the same issues that you see in other classes, right? Sometimes it's more intensified in certain classes than other ones, because one, students may not like the content that you're teaching. Two, they may feel like the teacher, they don't like them, they don't get along. Or if you don't have really good, strong classroom management and great relational skills, it may be a bit challenging for you. Students like to try out new vocabulary, right? And it could be new vocabulary that they heard from anywhere. Middle school, TikTok, social media, they have all kinds of things, right? So I would hear the students say some things, and I ask, what does that mean? But what does that mean? What does that mean? So I start saying some of the things they say, and they're like, oh my God, who taught you that? They would say, what the skibbity toilet, she's so red, she's so Sigma. And so I would start saying this stuff, and they'd be like, oh my God, Miss Walden. It's like, well, y'all say it too. So they have new vocabulary. You just have to ask, what does it mean? Because sometimes they'll use that slang that you don't know what it means, but it's something very derogatory and something very negative. So ask, what does those things mean? Because they could be saying it out in the classroom and you are so oblivious and have no idea what it's saying, but it really means something negative. And even so with parents, ask your children, what do these things mean? This slang that they're using, what does that mean? Especially when we are far removed from that age bracket and we don't hear it as much, or we're not entertained with the type of things they're listening to, or the type of music that they're listening to, or the type of movies or TV shows they watch, and you won't know what it is. So you have to ask questions. And then when I find out certain things, I say, oh, don't say that in here, right? So once you learn, you are aware, is this something appropriate or not appropriate? And then you have to let them know, don't say that, or, it's okay. They will initiate their own activities in your classroom, right? So if there's something you want them to do, right, you have to make sure you're very specific with it, because if not, they'll come up with their own activities in your classroom. They'll come up with their own ideas. Well, we're going to do this when we go to, such and such class. You have to make sure it's structure, because if not, I'm telling you, they will come up with their own ideas. They need access to significant adults outside of their parents and outside of their teachers, so they can really talk through what they got going on. Some adults are not very keen on their student having a therapist or a mental health professional, but it could be an older cousin, it could be an older sibling, somebody that's mature, that's going to give them some great advice. It could be an aunt or uncle, maybe a grandparent, right? It may be a big brother or big sister that they have, maybe a coach, but they need those interactions with people to be able to share their thoughts and get a better response. Because I always tell students, if you have an issue and you go into somebody that's in the same grade as you, at the end of the day, when y'all finish coming up with your solution, you still have a 12-year-old solution, or you still have a 13-year-old solution, right? Let's match your solution and your thoughts with somebody that's mature, that's going to give you some information that's going to be helpful and that's not going to harm you, and make sure that you're on the right track. So just keep them in mind. Please allow them to have that time where they can talk to people and they can share their things. And of course, you want to be mindful and be discerning of spirits. Who is this around my child? Who is this around my nephew? Who is this around my niece? Because everybody does not have good intentions. So you got to still be careful, but also having that outlet for they be able to express themselves and share things that's on their hearts. As far as 12-year-olds, when it comes to reading, making sure that you allow them to have independent choices of reading. They like chapter books. What are they interested in? Talk to them about the things they're interested in, and then buy them books, buy them things that are conducive or mesh what they're interested in, right? A lot of parents will say, I buy my child books all the time. They read all the time at home, Miss Walden. So I don't know what happened when they come to school. A lot of time it's the interest, right? That's why, again, I don't assign specific reading things. Allow them to enjoy those books that their parents are buying them and bringing them. Again, when 12-year-olds, they starting to get into like algebra if they're there. So making sure that, you allow for that time for that. Allow them to work with partners, of course, having choice. And I keep saying this, right? Peer conferences with them, allowing time for projects, and make sure if you assign a homework or a project that is thought out, it's meaningful. Because students know, especially this age, she was giving me some busy work. It's just a worksheet. Like, they know, and they will tell you that. They like to take part in formal debate. So maybe you can have a Socratic seminar in your classroom when things are happening. They like to take on social justice issues. So you teach them how to debate with people without attacking somebody, right? Now, obviously, now the presidential election is coming up. You see all kinds of comments about people, right? And what they thinking about candidates and what they think about each other who vote and like certain people, right? So teaching them how to have a conversation and a debate with somebody without attacking the person. That's one of the big things I always address with relationships, especially. Like, we can debate and have a disagreement, but we're not attacking each other. I didn't like the way you did this. I didn't like this incident, but I'm not going to talk about, oh, well, that's why you so black, or, oh my God, that's why you whatever, right? So you got to make sure you teach them that, because otherwise it'll get real messy in your classroom real easy. And they love to take on leadership roles. Again, middle school students, they love to help you. Allow them to help you pass out paper. Allow them to perhaps, if you have somebody you feel like you can trust, and you have to teach them, like, listen, if I allow you to check these papers for me, I don't want you to be going talking about what people made, right, on the thing. One of the things I'll give you as far as it comes to grading papers, right, especially for middle school, if you passing, whether you're passing out or whether someone else is passing out, because I always go over the stuff that I'm giving back. If it's something that, is real quick, I can just tell them. But if it's like a test or an exam or something, I'm going to go over it with you, because I want you to know the right answer. Now, of course, sometimes I'll circle the right answer on the paper anyway, but I want to tell you why it's the right answer. So what I started doing was I put the grade. I wasn't putting the grade on the front. I may open it up and put it on the second or third page, or I may put it on the back, because as we're going over it, I don't want a student self-conscious about somebody looking right here with their grade on the front of the paper, because maybe they didn't do too well. If it's on the back, you don't know what they made, right? And also I started switching it up, because when I started allowing students to pass the papers out, of course they know, and they can flip on the back side, or somebody can flip the paper over. So I always switch it up. So that's a great tool you can do when it comes to checking papers. You don't always have to put the grade on the front of the paper, especially if they're not doing too well. You don't want to embarrass them when you're going over the stuff. Okay. So keep that in mind. Now, here we go with our last one. We are at 13-year-olds, and we may go to, it gives us 20 minutes. So this is like 2 days, 20 minutes, right? We at 2 days. So this would be considered 15 and 16. Yeah, 15, 16, maybe 17. And then we'll have 3 more days to go. So with 13-year-olds, they have lots of physical energy. They may start having like skin problems, so eczema and, the little bumps and pimples and all those things may start to be an issue. So you notice that sometimes they want to put the hoodies on their head, right? A lot of times students are not just wanting to wear hoodies because, they want to simulate what they see. A lot of times they wear hoodies because they don't like their haircuts. One of the things you have to understand is that they become very self-conscious. They don't like people to see their fresh haircuts when they get it, because sometimes students say something about it. I don't know why they like to slap the back of boys' heads when they get fresh haircuts. When they have share birthdays, I always do the birthday celebration in my classroom. But I tell students, we do birthday love. We don't give birthday licks. You have to set that up, right? We share birthday love. We don't do birthday licks. When someone gets a new hairdo or a new style, or have a new outfit or not so nice outfit, or they take their braids out and their hair may be a little kinky or in a ponytail that you're not used to seeing, we're not bringing attention to that, right? We're not picking on people, because you don't know anybody's situation. You have to address those things in your classroom. You address those things in the hallway, so that doesn't impede on the learning when it get ready time to do a lesson. Okay. 13-year-olds, most girls are having a menstruate, they're on their period. They have their menstrual cycle. Some of them may take advantage and tell you every week they on their cycle. And sometimes I say, honey, now you just told me you was on your cycle last week. Now I'm a female. Come on now. Right. So Don't let them take advantage of you, but you have to also be mindful of that sometimes they do have those issues and circumstances. They pay a close attention to their peers. They monitor what's in, what's out. They monitor what their friends are saying. They are very pure conscious, right? They're very, very pure conscious. So you have to set your classroom up to be safe for them to answer questions, because this is the age range where they don't want to be made to look like a fool. They don't want to be made to look like they don't know what they're doing. So you got to make sure you set it up in your classroom where, listen, this is a safe environment. We're not laughing at people. We're not picking on people when they read, when they answer a question, when they're doing something for the class or out loud. You make that a priority to make it a safe environment. I always say this, right? People talk about safe schools and all this stuff, but you have to be a safe person. If you somebody that just let students run wild and say whatever they want to say in your classroom, you're not a safe person. So that's not going to be a safe environment. You have to be a safe person. You have to be the first person that they know. When I step in here, ain't a whole bunch of crazy stuff going down in here, right? It makes it easier for them to let their walls down and their guards down, to want to sit and listen to you. And of course, a lot of this stuff will come as you go. Don't compare yourself to somebody who's been doing it for 20 years. Don't compare yourself who was in the same building last year. Don't compare yourself. Just make sure that you have the desire to make a difference, that you're studying your craft, you are well planned, and you have good intentions every day. And I promise you, this stuff is going to come to you naturally over time. 13-year-olds can be very moody and very sensitive, right? And so you got to know it's not personal, right? When they come into your classroom and they don't want to do something, sometimes it's not always personal. It's not about you. So don't walk around, oh my God, why are these children acting like this? And again, that's why I say, don't go spend your money trying to buy the affection or buy the likes of students. This is part of their developmental. Sometimes they just ain't gonna like you no matter what you do. And it's like, it's okay. Tomorrow you'll be fine. And maybe by the end of the class, you may be fine. Some of them may get upset with you when you have to get with them or there's a consequence. But eventually they realize, she really has my best interest, or he really has my best interest at heart. Like, you cool, Miss Walden. Especially like with the friendships, right? One friend may be like, I don't like Miss Walden because she was fussing at me today. And then the other friend be like, well, what'd you do? Right? So it's like people will have different perspectives about you, but you can't try to like bribe and buy these students, because they'll see right through that and they'll use you up until the very last bit of what they can get out of you. And so don't do that to yourself. Girls tend to focus on their close friendships, and boys tend to travel in small groups, right? So you have the girls who, they got all these friends, but boys, they kind of got their one or two little friends that they together. So pay close attention to that too as well when you're ready to make groups or partnerships in your classroom. Boy, girl, they still don't necessarily like that. So if you're trying to really set it up where, it may not be as active or as talkative, use that boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. 13-year-olds, they spend a lot of time on social media. Now, I don't think it's just 13-year-olds, but 13-year-olds, they teenagers now. The 11 and 12, they consider them tweens. They pre-tweens. They're not a teenager yet, but they consider tweens. So you have these teenagers right on the cusp of turning 13. They spend a lot of time on social media. They're very much impressionable of what they see, and they will bring whatever they see, these trends that they see, the things, the challenges. They'll come to school and try to do it, and you're like, why y'all doing that? Like, do you even know why you're doing that? They tentative, they worried and unwilling to take rest on intellectual tasks. So you have to make the classroom a safe place to answer questions. Even if you're wrong, you have to make it a safe place and a safe environment. That way they'll keep answering and they'll keep trying and they'll keep learning and they'll keep growing. And it don't matter if they get it wrong, because it's like, I'm still learning. I never got this information before. And so if I get it right, that's wonderful. If not, my teacher going to give me the right answer, or my peers are going to say it. I'm going to learn something new and keep on going. All right. Then we talk about 13-year-olds, they're highly judgmental of their teachers. And I said this, as a middle school teacher, your students are going to talk about you regardless, right? It's going to be positive and negative. They're going to talk about you, their mama, to their daddy, to their auntie, to their friends, probably to your coworker when they make you mad, to the cafeteria workers, whoever will listen. So they're going to talk about you and they can be very judgmental, but it's not always negative, right? They are very good judges of character. She likes me. She's nice, right? She's fair. She's not fair. He's cool, right? He's always happy. She always got an attitude, or he always got an attitude, right? He liked the boys more than he liked the girls, and he do certain things with this class that she don't do with this class. So they're conscious and they are very aware of what's going on. So you may think they're not paying attention in the classroom, but they really are. And you'll be surprised at things that they will tell you that they saw, or things that they observed, and you're like, what? So be mindful of that. Students are always watching, making sure we're giving them something positive to watch. Some are very interested and influenced by pop culture, right? It is what it is, right? Some of them will watch TV and celebrities and want to do that stuff, dress like them, talk like them, use their slang. You have to, again, make sure, ask the students, what does that mean? And let them know that's inappropriate for this setting. Do not say that. Do not do that. Do not behave like that because it's inappropriate for this setting. If that's something your parents let you do outside of school, then, by all means, you do whatever you do there. But this is not appropriate. And then you also teach them it's not even appropriate for that. And I always tell students, it's not that, I just don't want you to do that or say that in here. Like, you don't want to do that, period. I literally instill them to be a good human, right? To be a good human. Sometimes students, 13-year-olds, they will shut down and answer adult question. You ask them a question, they don't want to answer, right? They upset, they mad. Again, don't take it personally. Don't say, you're gonna answer this question. They don't gotta answer the question, right? Don't do that to yourself, right? Don't overwhelm yourself with the development and the mood change that students are going through. They will challenge you and ask you why they're doing this, why they have to do that. That's why you have to make the lesson meaningful and connected to the outside world. Anything that I do, I'm always connecting it, right? I tell students, one thing about teaching reading is it can be difficult because some students don't learn the basis of reading and phonics and fundamentals, and they don't have a large vocabulary, so they struggle. But it's like, what profession are you ever going to do where you don't have to read? There may not be a chapter book. It may not be something lengthy or literary, but they're going to have to read, right? You have to read the comments when you're on social media. You can just scroll the pictures, but what is the caption? What are they saying? If you want to post something, you got to know what you're posting, right? And some people need to proofread before they post, right? So reading is one of those things where you won't always do it, right? You need to know how to fill out an application, a contract. You're going to buy a house. You need to know what these things are saying. So I can always tie it into the real world. Tie what you're teaching into the real world. How does this connect? Because they're more apt to actually do it. 13-year-olds are interested in fiction and nonfiction. They still in the imaginary state, but they also into what's happening in the real world. It's nothing wrong with still reading out loud to your middle school students, right? Especially if you have a class where the reading is a challenge or their literacy is a challenge. Them hearing how good reading sounds will help them, right? Helping them hear how good reading sounds helps them. And they acquire a lot of vocabulary from the context in which they're reading. So you're teaching them vocabulary within context. I mean, I heard this word in this sentence or this song, and I don't really know what it means. So let me go listen and see what are the words surrounding it that I know, that I can then figure out what does this actually mean, right? And so some of the things you can do with your 13-year-olds, and some of them may be 8th grade and some of them may be 9th grade. I was 11 and 12. I think I was 12 going into 9th grade, and I turned 13 when I got in that September in 9th grade. And I told you guys I graduated at 17. I graduated from high school when I was 17, and then I graduated from college. I started teaching at 21. Yeah, 21, 22, 21, 22. So last thing for 13-year-olds or 8th graders or 9th graders, give them short, predictable homework assignments. Again, you don't have to give them 1,000 problems. 2 or 3 problems is going to be good for them. Allow them to choose their partners or their group members. Sometimes you still have to have structure, but allow that choice for them. And then help create rubrics for self-evaluation of work. And so when you get into the older grade, students understand this is a rubric. Okay, in order for me to get an A, these are the things I need to do. In order to get a B, these are the things I need to do. In order to get a C, these are the things I need to do, right? That way they can measure how well they're doing. And then a lot of times they will pick the grade they want. Some students will definitely go for, hey, I'm going to get an A. and this is what I need to do. And sometimes they see the requirements and say, I don't want to do that. And even in the life, adults will see, okay, this is where you got to go if you want to achieve this level of success. These are the things you got to do. And some people say, well, I don't really want to do that. But this is the things you got to do in order to achieve the amount of success in your health or your finance. And some people say, well, I don't want to do that, right? So you give them rubrics. Again, you can apply this into real world, how this does affect you in the real world. And so that was our professional development for today. This is for 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and 13-year-olds. And this really took us till about 54 minutes. And so this will be considered our last. I think I'm gonna just use it as 2 days instead of 3 days. But I know this was a blessing to you guys. I will say this last thing. And so this concludes the professional development. What I'm about to say now is for your personal growth, which is still professional development, because remember, my framework is your personal your personal development, your spiritual development. Then it goes into your planning, your lesson planning, your preparation, all the 6 things that's included into the framework that I have. You can go back and look at our first video, and then I'll talk about more of that when we get ready to close out, and I'll talk more about the membership. But it's something that I saw today that has, I don't know, it just really sparked something in me. And I'm not a person who addresses every single thing. I'm not a person who, responds to every single thing. And this was not something directly to me, but it's something that I experienced. And for those of you who follow me, you may have experienced this as well, right? A lot of times you'll see people who put everything on God. And, God is in everything. A lot of people will make you believe that if you just pray about stuff, then things are going to happen. And that's not true. The Bible says faith without works is dead. We have to be working out our own soul salvation. And there's a lot of people that will promote, man, God did it and God answered my prayer. And yes, God does answer our prayers. And yes, God do move on the hearts of people. And yes, God uses people to do things. And yes, God can supernaturally supply different things. But it's somebody in the background doing some work, right? And so don't ever think that you can just pray about something and not do work about it. Some people are doing a whole bunch of praying and they ain't getting the results that they want because there's no action, there's no faith, there's no work behind it, right? Some people are not telling you there's a strategy behind it. I hired a coach, I hired a mentor, and this is what they told me to do. This is what I did. When I first started, the mandate was to pray for schools. I would pray for schools. That's how my first book came out, Standing on Word, praying for schools. And I would pray, Father, raise up other leaders, other people to go back into these schools. I literally seen that play out in my life with this speaker, my last speaker community that I joined. There's hundreds of men and women who love the Lord or going back into these schools, right? That was one of my prayers, to see that happen. God, raise up other men and women to send them back into these schools who have a heart for you. I am seeing that in real time play out from my prayers, but that didn't just happen because I prayed. These people had to put something in place so people could know, let me invite them into my school. It's not net that I'm just praying for schools. I'm reaching out. I'm showing up at schools. I'm sending out emails, right? I'm sending my EPK, right? So all the things that you see happening, it was not because I just prayed for that. So stop having people thinking that only thing that you did was pray for things when, you may have paid for an opportunity to go speak somewhere, right? Even with, different organizations where you see people speaking, because I'm big on speaking and going back into schools and doing these professional developments, right? None of my opportunities came by because I only prayed. I reached out to the principals. I sent my information to them. I told them what I could do. I studied my craft, right? Some opportunities, some platforms you see people on is because, one, they had to fill out the proposal to be a speaker. And sometimes that comes with a fee, right? A fee either to participate or a fee to get into the event, and then you can speak for free. And then a lot of times you are paid to speak, right? Most of the times you want to be a paid speaker, right? But part of that, you don't just get that by only praying. And I think a lot of people have made that out to be seeming like, well, God must don't hear me. God must don't love me. Maybe I'm, excuse me. Maybe I'm not praying right. Let me drink some water. Remember I told you guys I had a really nice kindergarten teacher, a bomb kindergarten teacher. She gave this to me this year. A teacher appreciation week, I taught her soon. Because when people start doing that, people will think, well, maybe I'm not praying right because God is not answering my prayer, because it's more than just praying. It's more than just praying. When all I did was just pray for schools, I saw God open up doors for other people. He will answer them. Absolutely. But when it came time to me getting back into schools, there were things I had to put in place. So stop allowing people to make you feel like the only thing you got to do is pray. Do we pray? Absolutely. But then you have to do the work that's going to match your prayer. The Bible even says some things only come out of here by prayer and fasting. Some people pray, but they don't want to fast. They don't want to discipline themselves to fast. So then this kind, what's in my family, what's in my bloodline ain't coming out of me because I'm not doing something in addition to the prayers. I told y'all about James 5:16. Confess your faults one to another that you may be healed. Right? The effective fervent prayer of the righteous avail much. They all talk about, oh yeah, let's come together and pray. But the beginning part of it is confess your faults one to another that you can be healed. You got to open up your mouth and speak and talk and say the things that's going on with you, right? And this is what I'm learning, right? And I learned this and I was like, this is kind of where I'm in my season. Some people have only taken you as far as they can take you. Some people can only take you as far as they can take you. They don't have the capacity to take you to where you're going next. And so you don't need to spend energy trying to tell them about where you're trying to get to, that they can't help you there. Do more than just pray. Put in the work. Put in the work and stop telling people. If you're one that say, oh, I just prayed about it. Stop telling people that. If you don't want to tell them what you did, stop telling them that you only prayed. If you know there was a strategy that you used, don't just tell them, oh, God did it. Yeah, we know God gets in the hearts of people and turns the hearts of people. He can stir up the spirit like Cyrus, but what are you doing? I've literally, there's something that I have before the Lord, right? It was an opportunity that came my way. And we've been going back and forth about it. And literally now I'm just giving it to God. Like, if I'm supposed to be there, I'm supposed to be there. If not, then, I'm saying, I'm cool with that. I'm going to keep reaching out to other schools. I'm showing up to schools now. Hey, listen, this is what I offer. My name is Simene, the student teacher. XYZ, what I say, right? It's more than just pray. I show up. I go. And so next week, I'm going to be back into these schools, right? Last couple of weeks, I just kind of been chilling, getting my mind right. But it's like, all right, so it's time to get busy again, right? So stop just telling people that you only just praying about it. Yeah, praying works. But also, even with that, just praying, you have to read your word. Some of us don't read our word, right? We just only want to pray. Hopefully that it could just some supernatural come into our head. But you got to also read the word. You have to do something besides prayer. And so if you're the person that tells people that, oh, yeah, I just prayed about God, open the door, but you don't tell them what you're doing outside of that, you become a liar and you become deceptive in what you're telling people. And if you're somebody that only believe all you have to do is just pray and nothing else, you're being deceived. And then you wonder why I'm only getting these results, because you're not putting in the work to match whatever you're praying for, whatever you're asking God for. Hallelujah. So I wanted to share that with you guys tonight. So we are definitely over an hour. So this would be considered 3 days. And so I love you guys tonight. Be blessed in Jesus' name. I will not be coming back on today. I don't think I'll come back on tomorrow because these are 3 days. Monday, I will definitely be back, but I think I'll probably be back with a pre-recorded video that's going to come out live. It'll be 10 a.m. then. If you see it says 10 a.m., come on 10 a.m., know that it is pre-recorded that Miss Walden has recorded for this session. And then the last 2 days, I will come on live, talk about the membership program, open it up for you guys. Those of you, you can scan the code. I need to put it in the description because it's no longer, in the description. But you can sign up to get access to the guided notes. You can sign up to be a part of the community in the membership program, where I continue to pour and feed into you guys who are in the educational space, new, beginning, seasoned, tenured teachers. And so I love you guys tonight. Be blessed in Jesus' name. Peace.